enti se unie bi ebi arefie abamu thinking say ye best start be say 8 enti na wo ma ya ye besre na wabɔ mmɔden ato nsa afrɛ ɔdɔfoɔ bi adamfoɔ bi asafo ba bi a wonya mma so na afei ɔmmra na yɛmɛ pɛnsɛn nsɛm a ɔsɔfoɔ ɛde brɛ yɛ adwummerɛ ɛfiri series a yɛhyɛ aseɛ ɛnɛ ɛrekɔ no ɛbɛyɛ soronko kakra na ebi ɛbrɛ kɔ anim no yɛbɛhu n'ani so paa ɛyɛ nipa de bebree ɛrebusa sɛ yɛbɛda ahwɛ bi yɛbɛda join mu ne n'asefoɔ wobɛtumi de zoom line no ama wo nua bia na afei no adamfo na obia na wa join yɛ na ansana yɛbɛhyɛ dwumadie no ase kraa no mɛsrɛ sɛ moma yɛnsi yɛtra ase baabi a yɛwɔ bia na afei yɛmfa empayɛ ani anim na afei yɛwie a yɛahyɛ dwumadie no ase nti moma yɛnsi yɛtra ase na afei yɛmmɔ empayɛ yɛnagya wɔ soro yɛda wase anwummerɛ yi wɔ wadom ɛne wahumɔborɔ a wamana dɔɔso pii amayɛ wodɔyɛ enti daa ne daa wode nsɛm a ɛbɛboa yɛn ɛne mmayɛ wodɔyɛ daa ne daa wonyaa yɛ emu wodɔyɛ enti daa ne daa wohwɛ sɛ deɛ yɛhia bia ɛbɛma yɛayɛ nkonimdifoɔ no wode bɛma yɛ na awieyɛ mmerɛ mu nsɛm nso wodɔyɛ to the extent sɛ womfa nhintaeɛ na wonam wadom so ɛde ne nyinaa so adom yɛ anwummerɛ yi wakoa wo bɛfa ne so eduebue nsɛm bebree so akyerɛ yɛ ɛyɛ nsɛm a obi biara a ɔyɛ onipa ɛwɔ yɛ asase so ɛyɛ adeɛ a ɛsɛ sɛ ohunu ɛsiane sɛ ɛyɛ nsɛm a waka na ɛbɛsisi ɛsiane sɛ wahyɛ ho bɔ na wotwe yɛ adwene asi so maako na wasiesie yɛ na sɛ ɛbrɛ ne du a anaasɛ adu yi mpo no yɛhu sɛdeɛ yɛbɛsi ayɛ nti siesie wakoa ɛne atiefoɔ nyinaa na fa wakwa so yenhyira bebree so mai anwumre ewo Jesus Christ din mu amen yo pastor em say dwumadie we ye hwɛ sɛ nka betimi ayɛ no split screen no na ka ye nyina ayɛ wɔ so sɛ de be ya ebesi interactive enti yɛnhwɛ na yɛmfa umra if that is possible na yen spotlight o video no so na afei no yenyina no yenhunu enka ho na yenhwɛ sɛdeɛ ebesi akro esanse akoye interactive ya pese yeye asofo enwumre yebema wo adwo sronko kwa so pa
yo ela say ma happy sabbath so one as
happy sabbath pastor ye das pa pastor any topic a ye ba beka ho asem no topic bi a ye hu se eda wakoma so pa topic no edin climate change and international Sunday law eno any asem a enwumre ye ba beka ho asem na nsakra na ye be call topic ni mu no ye be say ebuza se edie pa na ma hunu ya the book bi nso ato nchen ye bebusa ho asem nyina edie na ma topic we very important relevant and my say sabre say ye fa topic a etise na ye ka ho asem probably ebi kra nte ye but ye sha ase na die na ma sa topic we relevant and my ewe ye mre
well am da say em say die ema die ye ka ho asem yi no relevant no okay kan Amos chapter 3 or say our Lord God does nothing unless he has revealed to us. If we say nyame bo ade nyina no at every step bia onyame step into human history no for intervention no at every step bia no nyame edanedi enti yehwe Noah dia there was intervention no yehwe Sodom and Gomorrah onam Abraham so emane mabi dedi enti no yesu nso baaye no ebrana Jerusalem was say ye baso no eno nso no onam yesu so eka ho asem enti no sa climate change no koso no se wohwe ne kire mu a obeka se bia just global warming but the agenda no bigger than that. There is something behind na yenkai se wo kan edisem etu du miensa na sa tumi a final powers Wamo be yen shishaya hodo ansan Yesu aba no. One word the Bible they describe wamo say deception and that. Enti no enema omo ye pa no ehinta. ɛna ɔmo yɛ biribi a wiase na ba afeefee mu paa na it goes deeper than the ɔmo sɛle ama yɛ no na ɛno na saa wohwɛ climate change ni mu a ɛnyɛ just climate change in fact ɛyɛ adeɛ a ɛledi to adeɛ a nkɔmhyɛ aka ho asɛm pɛpɛɛpɛ no na mehu sɛ ɛrekɔ so na ɛba saa na mepɛ sɛ nyame mma nyinaa no ɛnhyɛ aseɛ pay attention na ɔmo nso mfollow enti wei no nyɛ sɛ bi asɔfo sɛ but mebɛka nneɛma a ɛrekɔ soɔ na ma challenge wo sɛ wan so fa woni di ekyire ne hwɛ na hu sampa ade bi a bible akem bia no the trajectory no it is moving towards enkomhye any we bremu nsem
oh asofia that's but that is say ye ti de opekire ye anwumre ya ase no a that is say ye pain super no asem bi a ewo bible mu a trosem ne ka no kame aye say ye pain super no ade bi a ewo adi nkomhye mu a esese sisi ewiye mre no ɛna ye pain so ye hu bia na
yeah exactly ebeyo won wa say bibie ni hodum a eye surprise ye ka climate change ye ka weather exercise any temperature exercise ni sa ne ma nyina apart from say yesu kan ho asem no edin come share more than 100 years ago onyame emma ye nya sa message ya de ekoso nde nyina ne ye behwe say eye something they have been revealed nyame adanedi entino enye se eye mfumu na sisie ya ye wo ho no currently no ena sa niema no ebem na koso entem so a we say nyame mba nyina no ya dwen koso ne hu say whatever we have believed in the past say yesu beba na niema bi bedi enimo no ni nyina no eye no kwe exactly na ni nyina no ebem say de enim dada no
yeah that's when ya ansana wo be kom na afi odi adesua na mai pa no enti na se ebem wo ye pesu na ye hu a adenti ana hu hia maye se ye pensu ye tesa ensem no na den na wo hwehwe se esese ye nya free adesua wo ba ebewremu na afi wo ne yen ache no
well yesu no ema yen what to do okay can Luke chapter 21 na ebia yesu eka niema ebeba so we ebiemu no or say when these things begin to happen lift up your eyes for your redemption draweth nigh. So who says niema no ebemu a maweni so Jesus was not talking about physical eyes obi ho ye ni fu anyway nyamsum ni but all kasi yema ye ni so e kire say it is high time say ye befa yakoma ene ya adwi nyina efri asasi so and to focus on eternal things every say eyade a abem ana atu yen enti yesu say nyese ye o say ye hu keke na emom no bra ye hu sa bemu no e wo say ye de ya adwen ye de yakoma nyina no ehwehwe nyame na ye de ye ready for the second coming of Christ enti no enye say just curiosity na ye pede ekoso by something yen yankasa no eboa yen and the second reason they said okay kan edisem a etu ye dunan na o si yen kan kire wiase nyina say mema mumfiri ne bomfi enti no ye wo enipa bebre o mokwa ye ho hia ebi ye busuafo bi adofo they have no clue what is going on enye say ye twen ema sa niema no aba wiase so ansa na yaka but as we see these things no e wo say ye din ne atiem ema wiase nyina hu say bibi eba now we should prepare for the things eba as so it is another reason why we should know what is coming
where the that spy you be chama pastor na wo dia fam you say Sunday law ye ka ho asem e wo din fufuro bi wo ho ye say saa de nkra ya hye some time ago ni nyina ye adwuma aye niam bi awia so we are so excited say and nyame ebefa so ebuebue eniema a etete saa so akere any pastor ebesrew na wa go forward na afi wa share with us and as you go along no na ya hwe de nyame ede ye bedru
elder me da say nyame ba me mamu nyina happy sabbath once again said ye yaka ehho asem enwure no eye eweye bremu eniema ekoso na ye beka ehho asem now hear the title now say loud to say climate change and international Sunday law yemu bebre yate Sunday law subeba no kwe na ebebem wo ye bre so ana brebe ne bebom enwumre said ye share last week no we are going to explore na ye betwa so every baby a ye share last week no every year no okay kan and woman what would say last day events chapter ana page 125 or say we have been looking many years for a Sunday law to be enacted in our land. And now that the movement is right upon us, we ask, what are our people going to do in the matter? Osimbre bebre ana yahwe ni mu se nhyehyeye ebe hye nipa se osumu yemfa kosia densi wono no yebe inacte ewo oman ya eye America emu no na sabre ya san nhyehyeye ni nyina no anomontuo ekọ ni nyina no ebe mpepepe no question na yebusa ye ho ye se edie ba die na ye yafa ho na begidi say this is the time o say yebe hwehwe nyame ye na ye ni ankasa no yesiesie ye ho na yesiesie afoforo nso for the ever wiase so enwumre no the information I no share no a dozen and you know I'll try and share as much as I can, but we are also not going to rush through. Baby ye dibeduro ye nwia next time no ye beto so said ye be ya ebeye ntiase ebebe mu na ansa na no me pese baby a wo bia no usi utras ne mo mpaye yeda wase homede wura and then homede so wama yakwenya. Your word is a lamp unto our feet. Wasem eye yenase kania obi biara a wotena wasem no ondu esumu na esumu entonoda na obi biara a obepo wasem no esum kebi na beto no na obenante sumu ara wosumu yeda wasese wada wochimpo di edi akyeyen ewo wasem yempaye ene ya disre a yede srewo ne se enwumre yehu aboa yen na wankasa ma yentiase na yenhu eniema atu yen ewo eweye bremu said ye beya ye besiesie ye ho na bibia amfa ye no mum yeda wase ewo Yesu di mu na ye bompa ye asreunti amen. Last week no ye ka document bi a ye friend say Laudato Si a eye on care for our common home na that document no was written by Pope Francis and I say Pope Osisu CCA. The point of this study no is not to say ebia de Pope ye bia na ye di ekire ne sa de mani na the only place I betumi ati enema ebesi wo wiye bremu eye the Bible. It is the Bible and eye the compass. Enti enema bebre na ekoso se wo de wadwen edi ekire na se wo pese wo try se wo de wadwen ebe make sense of enema ekoso a most likely you will get it wrong. The only place where you can piece enema ekoso together no is in the word of God. Because history ana abakwasem eni niema ehinta de no God has revealed nina ewo nasem starting from Daniel in verse 600 years before say Christ bebano Daniel maye a timeline of eniema ebesisi sa na nyame ye niema entino enwume we are going to look at these current events in the light of Bible prophecy ana de nyame aka ana nyame asemaka. Share my screen on and off. Said you bet to me I interacted. Ti heard the dasona, you were American man penny, and I wore Pope Francis, and as our document, your friends said Laudato Si, and now on care for our common home. Now, and you may be share what that means, on care for our common home, no, dear, I see actually anywhere it is leading the trajectory, of end time events at the airport. Now, the per se. Ye some clips be na ye hwa de bi say wo hwa the fact is say climate ananyema AC ewo ewiemu is going to play a significant role ewo ewieye buemu no onyame asem adan de dipefe. And first of all the me person here say I want us to look back na ye hwe some enyema bia more than 100 years ago onyame dan de di ye wia me play some clips be on enyema ekoso to review the trajectory of said yenema being folded. Then when we finish then I'll go back to that document Laudato Si na yahwe kwanya enyema bebre kekabom to help towards baby across America. Enti yenhwa de bi enti de di kan no me pese me kan enyema bi a onyame da de di ewodi nkom sekire ye kan sa de ni wi a the second thing I may say me pese ye some video clips be world leaders, United Nations organizations, European Parliament, I might be to say New Zealand, any Japan, sir, very, very advanced countries, sir. We are no, you say they call the shot. European Parliament, United Nations, NSAFUNA, they call the shots. Then we see a Nema, you predicted 100 years ago. In light of Sademano, we will jump back to Adiciano, any Nema, the presentation, Jedi Kai Pano, Muma Yen Shesa, documenti, na Yen Kan Yiana, ma go back, let me share sa document here. Onyame enam nasem so eda ne di editre eye anasi right. It's the year near 1904. Na said the maka se onyame nye bibi chi se wada ne di no. We eye niema na edin kom se eka efa eniema ebe unfold before say Yesu beba. Or say it is on the law of God that the last great struggle of the controversy between Christ and his angels and Satan and his angels will come, and it will be decisive for all the world. If we say, and yama directly no, who say the law of God, and now one of the tricks about some edi yusu, behind the scene, and now what they are quoted by the actual thing, the law of God, and nuna the center of the controversy. Now I say, men in responsible positions will not only ignore and despise the Sabbath themselves, but from the sacred desk will urge upon the people the observance of the first day of the week, pleading tradition and custom in behalf of this man-made institution. Osinipa hodwa womu positions ahodwo ewo nyamsumu no womu be gina nyamembe nim aka kire womu se onyame homeda no sisie de a first day of the week. Now the basis of making that decision no a tradition and a custom. Of course, in case we say there is no biblical basis for Sunday observance. Now, young guy say, enya enonkwa is gonna be a cluster of events and the ebekabum. Now, a king comes here to Asuka say, they will point to calamities on land and sea, to the storms of wind, the floods, the earthquakes, the destruction by fire, as judgments indicating God's displeasure because Sunday is not secretly observed. Now look at another trajectory. Apart from say ye ignore when yame homedano. Yes, this Sunday no. By the way, that is going to be the religious side. Ye dibe pushy for Sunday. But they all can say apart from no calamities bebrebesisi enyema bebrebesisi on land and sea. And you know, in Frama ebo, any floods eba, and an earthquake ahodwa ekoswo, and a California, ubechida wojato ho we ojato destruction by fire. Sanye mano ebekosu bebre. Na edin komshamba ye who said, such change in climate ni sanye mana catastrophic events the basis you know. Ebe get more and more. Or see these calamities will increase more and more. One disaster will follow close upon the heels of another. And those who make void the law of God will point to the few who are keeping the Sabbath of the fourth commandment as the ones who are bringing wrath upon the world. This falsehood is Satan's device that he may ensnare the unwary. Kidye Edin comes can say one of the cluster of events are ebema sa National Sunday law and international Sunday law no e beteki shape no say ye bo calamities ebe koso enyema besisie eja ehihye any insua fankofo any changes in weather and climate ni sa ne manyina no osi ebe koso na osi enkoso keke osi ebeye more na bra ebeye more no eventually no the plan will be say Omwa womu emuwa emayen honor the Sunday no womu na kofa sa na mani nyina ba na de enwure me pese me twa adwin sisu ye say the world as we live right now no is in agitation. Climatic changes are echoes wo wiemu ni we say it is stirring up the powers that be. Ewiase so tumfo ewiase tumidiefoɔ they are now increasingly pushing the issue of climate to the forefront. Say, an agenda, a must begin to pay close attention. Na emergency. You can't say be emergency. Actually, say, I was say we pay attention. Now, one pay attention now, it can lead to disaster. In fact, some of the things are agitations. Almost kind of said within some few years, say you tackle the issue of climate. If we are seeing no ebe say, and now we will be destroyed. Now me say, me play some of these clips by world leaders, United Nations organizations, and now US has say, any 2 days ago, the few weeks, they are pushing and urging the president of one mind. We say, Sanya na ewiase nyina no declare na won pese ebeye the forefront of form begin. In fact, some follow conversations are ekona. They are talking about another disaster, a much more serious than coronavirus. Now, almost a climate change. And now we should have climate lockdowns and climate emergencies. But when you remember you need the Nyamiaka, we need to sit down. Na yen share enema ekoso, not in the light of said the reality forecast, but in the light of the Nyamia Semwada and the actually. Remember, sa adia be kind see no, say climate moon nyamba besisi na ebema ewiasifo na ya agitated na be lead to sa kosiada so no. Remember, this was written in 1904, more than 100 years ago. And na Nyamia wonim enimu no odan the dictionary na said the enema esi ekos no, things are being fulfilled to the dot. Muma yenhwe sa clip we are etwasui a United Nations organization in relation to the American Wassemin. Now, I will share some few clips. Said the American say these are things that are collaborating and Yema a dean come share other in the dia. And what say ye be about your host there when Timuma Yentiesa clip we say. But your mumma me 1 second meba. Minyan ye said the beya me to me. Abo ama motie. Okay.
Behind the crisis of a global pandemic, another danger is waiting in the...
Okay, that's what now say. Paris Climate Accord anniversary. I will talk about climate accord no. Now, world leaders urge to declare emergency.
Wings. The climate emergency, fueling global warming, and according to the United Nations, with devastating consequences for humankind.
If we don't change course, we may be headed for a catastrophic temperature rise of more than 3 degrees this century. Can anybody still deny that we are facing a dramatic emergency? That is why today I call on all leaders worldwide to declare a state of climate emergency in their countries until carbon neutrality is reached.
5 years.
And United Nations a year a no calling on all world leaders said yenye climate emergency. Remember, this was 2015. Now this was the very year document I ever discussed about out. As soon as document never discussed about out no. And the Riasia Manofo in United States of the Obohujin say nuclear climate emergencies no.
On from the launch of the UN Climate Summit, when 196 countries signed on to prevent the rising global temperatures, the organization is sounding the alarm over failures to curb greenhouse gas emissions. Where some countries have acted on their commitments, others have not. One country which has seen the effects of climate change is Australia, the world's #1 exporter of coal. Its economy is heavily reliant on fossil fuels, and over the past 5 years, it has moved away from its commitment to cut carbon emissions. In recent years, devastating bushfires have ravaged the country, set off by record-breaking temperatures, as well as severe droughts. And the US, where in the past 4 decades, the yearly wildfires in the West have grown 8 times larger. The outgoing President Donald Trump controversially pulled the country out of the accord, a policy that left many dismayed. Yet the commitment by President-elect Joe Biden to rejoin the accords was welcomed at the virtual summit.
Okay, my main weddings here, I will share other clips in your way. Now, me per se share any maybe so. Adia a uniting factor. Eka sa amanyofwe world leaders na bomuno. Or say, tell them okay, climate emergency. ejashishia ekoswo any sanema ekoswo ni nyina no it is pushing the world leaders to do something your friends asa climate emergency no and you know said the income share no more than 100 years ago omaye hu say enema ebekoswo ewo wiase mu ejashishie any sa climatic nema ni nyina no ebe pia wiase nyina bom ama it will put the world together na ebekwa akowie sa Sunday legislation minyendu hodom minyendu hokwanti we are just looking at the fact to say the world is now presenting a united front to say your climate emergency and wiase amanyofo nyina no obia mfa ne hunjim said ye beya sa emergencies ya ekoso ewo ewiase mu no ye betumi enya anu aduro na enya ade a enwanwa efrise yenim die Bible aka any die edin komhye aka na mehwe other countries but yenhwe another country yenhwe Japan na yenhwe European Parliament so women so as they file in and then buy into the same idea and say yes enema ecos no they say we need to now focus on climate if we say enema na ecos no jashishia ne sa na meni na adofonom the tipping point enye adea efa yimfomu Bible say it's gonna be adea a big cluster we are say atumfo nyina enti yenhwe Japan so women so the action women so atake won in recent times on idea ye kan wasemi yes our climate emergencies here a lead to that final crisis said there a din come share adan di actually you know enti Japan also November 19 2028 and almost declare emergency climate emergency over Japan na be say no so yetie sa clip no enwasem.
Japan's lawmakers have declared a climate emergency in a symbolic vote aimed at increasing pressure for action. Lawmakers in the lower chamber took a stand against climate change as they voted in the non-binding emergency declaration. It cites unprecedented damage from natural disasters exacerbated by climate change. Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga last month committed to a net zero emissions goal by 2050, in what marked a major shift in policy for the world's fifth biggest carbon emitter. The government is developing investment funds and tax incentives to push through changes needed to reach its goal.
日本国において国会もまた政府もこの脱炭素に向けて、しっかりと取り組んだという決意をですね、世界にメッセージできるというふうに思っています。
Japan so or say the message Japan so send it to the world you say aban any abanyo amanyofo no the issue of climate you know they are taking it seriously and they are tackling it. There was a call, somebody sounded the call say we are amanyofo nyina mombra on board na yen tackle climate change na me afuna me beba so ma be so who say the minusua no e relevant na enye just idea eye kwanchan asem idea the powers that be womwasom a womoni abre a womodi beye djuma ti Japan so omonso declare sa climate emergency no November 19 2028 last year November na womoso die ni breso so enya womonko I just want to give you few examples to see say adena make am wasem no miniano dia alarming nyese be beso yemhihye o nyame bo ekira divine service no ye toa revelation series I share say last year so ye wie was 7 churches ye share say o chapter 4 kina na the message ekira kan wasem no message a ebema obo ato yem na wo hu say enema ekoso ni nyina no nyame ba you don't need to be afraid. God is in control. And these things no any things to make you afraid. But the nema e was woni ba ho so kaya ye wie afraid no Bible say ye nante say nyansafo if we say ebre na ye wono ye bra etia Europe nyina so ye European Parliament so wo mo so ehia ye e wo November 29 2019 wo mo so sa e vote for the whole European Parliament on sa ade ye kan ho asemi ye climate no enti no me pese eno so no ye hwe eno na eno so ye tie emu kakra bi se de be ya ye behu the dimension and the magnitude of the issue a yɛka ho asɛm a ewiase amanyɔfoɔ nyinaa ɛbɛ mu no nti moma yɛn mo ɛno nso kakra na yɛntie.
The European Parliament has voted to declare a climate emergency. Lawmakers hope the move will send a powerful signal to the UN Climate Summit, which starts in Madrid next week.
And you heard the Kenya said the European Parliament, I know to a country say where we punano or say Omunanso Asia almost would declare climate emergency of my vote to and Obibe comment to Honkakrat, Mumiente comment Nikakana, you move on.
They're also aiming to put pressure on the incoming EU executive to take a leading role in the global fight against climate change.
Now, notice the word okay, or see, omo person omo yenda omo put pressure on the incoming leaders, to continue that fight, Now, very significant because the final crisis are eba pejano dear to me better na nina no dear me person member. Baby, as you go back, you bet yes, you born.
All right, let's get more on this story now. We have our correspondent, Derick, standing by for us in Brussels. Hi, Derick, good to see you. How much support was there for this declaration among lawmakers in Parliament?
To me, a clear majority here amongst MEP lawmakers in Strasbourg backing that largely symbolic resolution. And that was one of the main concerns for some MEPs who have said, it lacks a bit of substance. There was the concern that it could fuel expectations that then could not be met. And that is why the Conservatives, for instance, said, let's rather call it an urgency rather than emergency. Now, the majority of that House has now decided.
Mean to me, European Parliament, Now, Mushia, November 29, 2019, Nipa a vote 2 year, 429 delegates and the vote 2 for climate emergency for European Parliament, any more constituencies, and a Nipa 225 and a year against, and a Nipa 19 absentee year, or more year against, almost say, Ebia Nipa say a friend of climate emergency. Nemo Mliansha na young conscientizing Kofo, Nankofo, whom we say climate. Etibusa say, what is it about climate? And now, can you pay now, Bomwa? CCA, climate emergency. We should all come on board. I don't know a dean comes say, Edin Kakamwasem, na and then so ye explore my young who say, in Comshepia Yenimbiano, course behind the climate, there is a wider agenda. What is the agenda? Mamima last example, we ask for my phone, omoni bre estuye, sa climate change, so said Yabaya, Yvia na matuaso na mi komenim na yetumi ahwe. Enti yenke the last example and also a year New Zealand and so December 2nd, 2020 and it's our timeline now. You November, within a short time all these major bodies are making drastic decisions. Bible said the final movements will be rapid ones. To the BSC, yes, Bebana, Ebia or say a bass yes to Beba, and Yema, a bedi dienimu leading to all the events, or see a Dubicaso, and here Japan, the December and November 19, 2020, you declare emergency. European Parliament, so 2019 November, and I heard New Zealand, and yet the last example, and also December 2nd, 2020, and now I'm also a pass sa idea climate emergency. Member US. Now you heard the to US and Sana Makosa la dato sino are a 34th part of the agenda for enema air cost one. Until Muma Yanke, New Zealand and so almost so dieno na yentwaso.
It's a symbolic but significant move. New Zealand's parliament voted overwhelmingly in favor of declaring a climate emergency. The country's prime minister says it was a necessary step.
This is a declaration that records the importance and formal importance of our intent as a nation and our intent on the global stage. It's a declaration that now serves as a directive to all aspects of the public service around the urgency that we as a government require and the urgency that we require around action.
Pay attention to the way you see use words be the urgency the urgency, they're very significant. What they are saying, they say, I was saying, ye be amunamunim who near tackles idea a yes, climate change in what's a win.
And it acts as a catalyst for change. It's, Mr. Speaker, a declaration that says we must get our own house in order. Partnership with.
Our government has also promised to become carbon neutral by 2025. It means New Zealand has committed to balancing out the impact of its own carbon emissions by funding carbon savings efforts elsewhere in the world.
We cannot underestimate a generation angst and full of anxiety over the reality of climate change for them and.
Okay, and you say we are operating within time and tea. Interesting because in the above video scene na I don't know. Look at any bra these world leaders. New Zealand December 2028. What is this climate change? In fact, the new year, bare weekly recent year starts here where I said these influential world leaders they are calling for climate lockdown. Now, when we said the year coronavirus lockdown, no climate change, dear, and no, dear, no. Say we are on the scale of 1 to 10. Now, say the seriousness of coronavirus, no, climate, 10. Ti serious. Na mamim refi omaya yitimu United States of America. Na yenhwe some of the few things and then so koso ewo ahase. Mama yenhwe sa pictures here we are mebo clip will be actually what am I doing? I don't for the say and nema koso na nyamimba or say we have to understand nema ekoso in the light of Bible prophecy, in the light of the nyamia semaka said the beya ye ni beba ye hosunye say whatever we have believed it is true na bibia no emfuyemu because nyame penisa tina nyamia da nema bebre edi ahye no enti no mame enhye screen yi biemu na yenhwe ade se wo hwe February 4 2020 Bernie Sanders Ocasio-Cortez any sa afoye omuye the powers that be yeni womu ewo krom ha say no omo say omu pushi omampanyi osisu sisi say undeclared national climate emergency. Look at the sense of urgency omo demand omo say we are out of time into omampanyi undeclared climate emergency ewo krom ha say Guardian, paper a friend said the Guardian a day before said yede omanpanyi basis no they reported said Biden to hit ground running as he rejoins Paris climate accords. Omanpanyi na wosiso dada no aye omanpanyi Trump ofri sa amanyofo ni wiase omkeka omu nyina bo ohbo mu 2015 196 countries and the yes accord no Paris na eno na wo say worldwide obia no embra on board na yen tackle sa climate change no na eno na omampanyi ofri so ayo omampanyi Trump oyi ni hu free mu enti Biden there oswaye say wo ba obeko back to sa ade no na mpa so one of the executive orders omampanyi Biden sign ye first day 20th January this is no that very same day no an executive order to join climate accord no na this week ye na ye no chasume wono so sound a call okay, that's it. When we tell me, one so air sound the he said, Omanpanyi, and European Parliament, Japan, any these countries now, but they are also putting pressure on my women Manpanyi so say, on also M4 who encourage na muma yentie MSNBC, and also bra ye interview Chuck Schumer, asema on also ekafa sa climate emergency any day here say. Oman penny and so funny hunko Jim and almost piano. Muma yentie.
Oh, can I say one other thing on climate?
Please.
I think it might be a good idea for President Biden to call a climate emergency.
By your cemetery, my men sound so embodied namuntie.
Can I say one other thing on climate?
Please.
I think it might be a good idea for President Biden to call a climate emergency.
Or say, a good idea. Say, man, penny, a free climate emergency, and also a call for that climate emergency. Say the European Parliament, any are mindful, are my way, you know, so yes, and Yamano. You will say Bernie Sanders, any Ocasio-Cortez, they have started calling for that. All you need to do is say your presentation, and now after Sabbath, go online, go to Google, and you will find information out there. Yet, say, how do we make sense of Enema air cosnom? Now, what ye Chuck Schumer, when you will be in the packetwa, or man your same. Namunti Sema all cano carefully, be bonina, Mivia, Yatwa, so.
Why?
Can I say one other thing on climate?
Please.
I think it might be a good idea for President Biden to call a climate emergency.
Why?
Because then he can, it relates to what you're saying. Then he can do many, many things under the emergency powers of the...
Then he can do many, many things under the emergency powers. A dear necessary a kicker home, a kicker climate change in one of Yankase and our Kase. On yes, Hadiano, now he can do many, many things under emergency powers.
President that wouldn't have to go through, that he could do without legislation. Now, Trump used this emergency for a stupid wall, which wasn't an emergency. But if there ever was an emergency, climate is one. So I would suggest that they explore looking at climate as an emergency, which would give them more flexibility. After all, it's a crisis. It's a crisis.
So you're talking about passing major climate legislation through the reconciliation process. Pressuring the president or asking the president to
just asking, let them look at it. You know, I have a lot of faith in that they'll make a good and right decision.
That sounds to me, in terms of the way you are thinking about that, I know you're thinking about a lot of different things at once, but it sounds like climate is central in terms of what you are trying to do.
Okay.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube.
Yeah, the basic I say, and you know, there you find on my Munswaya war, Chuck Schumer, Wiki, among your form, your popular baby, the Obanatum. Again, a what climate change one or man penny ever say or buy or the beba ampa or buy was science or monco. Now remember, said the Eco Subiano a global United Nations organizations may bore almost the Ordano any or more free we are seeing in a European Parliament, any South Wing in a Ecoso. Well, to make sense, now I can go to Laudato Si and as our document now a year released over 2015 to make sense of the air coso. Ebi I mean to mean rain and rain. Yen to mean rain and rain and me adma kusia den you ye better also. The purpose is M1 yamemba na ye making sense of current events in the light of Bible prophecy. And now no maminko Laudato Si no so na men summarize it. Na yen fano 1-1 na yen koso. And I'm gonna share my PowerPoint, as we go ahead, I'll be on and off with the PowerPoint and say the beya to me abuana musmu they can Laudato Si a document. It was issued by Pope Francis. Now or issues our document, 2015. And sa picture ne dasona the Vatican or senior and our logo. Now say encyclical letter, you can say encyclical letter. Idea if say obi a pope woman extra or title to their constituents. Now this particular letter it is not only addressed to the constituency of the Roman Catholic organization, it is also addressed particularly to world leaders. Now title Laudato Si. Laudato Si in Latin say praise be to God. And now we to make Musa. And I say praise be to God. And of the Holy Father Francis. Now the subtitle that a good adena or say on care for our common home. on care for our common home. Again, a friend, your common home. Now, how do we define the problem of climate change? Well, this is something that waton ama ana yaton ama wiase ahemfo nyina said the bedi nkan bobo clays ahodo no any wiase esudifo nyina because king kind revelation Bible say all the kings of the earth they will come on board on a consensus to execute the last great final crisis no na mebema a summary of sa ade no enti de di kan pa no climate change no said the document no be kan ho asem no and he said the meeting about no yes a global problem and ya dia we are seeing na fa we are seeing na and you know a global problem no requires a global solution and you say in these conversations are no you will phrase be said common home common good I will explain sa common home no common good no later in another presentation remember so by end of the year we are talking about the common home the premise of sa common home no ni say the earth is common home for all yasase eye ba kope yeni Pluto na yakotna so ena yeni baby a ye ko ti yeni eti asase so no yenina ye common home eye asase but enye nipa nko emmoa ka ho bi and all other created things animate things and you know that is the premise of the common home tie ka say common home na asechire say ewiase nyina no eti eda obi nsa yemu no eno na ye nyina eye dia enti we own it ye na ye dia enti eno na ye nia ye fie okay that is the premise the second one say what is the problem okay common home what is the problem and the problem they say climate change is a threat climate change a threat ya kase bibi a threat a kire say e pese e damage bibi ana e pese e threaten masa use word no e pese e ha bibi ana say e ma bibi e say bibi e bia betuma use that word no I hope say better say and the climate change is a threat and you say baby o hon ma temperature ni kosoro and the essence temperature ni kosoro ntino so polar bears in this the ice is melting at the poles and the common home for these animals no is being endangered, is being threatened. And now we for near a elephants in swat baby I was a green and so a whole night dry and the threat near say or how near say baby a common home a year na chino climate change in chino a threaten and I say our common home and you know okay document ya babekaina page 39 I'll say our common home is falling into serious disrepair. If fear is falling into disrepair, it is say and I say or say and I will see so. The second one they said the extent to the first one said as I see a common home. The second one say you will threat air threatening common home no. The third one very important to understand the cause you say. Esan say asase eye wiase fo nyina dia no oye Africa oye Asia oye North America oye South America obia eti wiase bi no the problem is global and we are talking about global issue and to say examples are boy you know your European Union your Australia in fact oko Ghana any South nations nyina they are part of it. Last 2 weeks, now they kind Ghana and so what they are doing on their part to also fit into Sabili Paris Accord no. And you know, say will be over no and if there is a solution, it should be a global solution because the problem no is a global problem, international problem. And the solution here said everyone must be on board to fight a global threat to save our common home. And the nature of the document, you know, and the nature of climate change, you know, and we live on a planet is being threatened. And if the planet is being threatened, and we say we are and you know, climate change now becomes something to unite all this world, all the kings of this world. And you know, so we you free mudia. Ekrese umpese adia ebeboa ma wiase nyina koso yie no Pese bebasa, and you are against the common good. And Nema Ebuama Yedia Banunda Ubia Watona say, when you want because you are common enemy. Who is our common enemy? Our common enemy is climate change. And there can we see in our album. And it's already picture that's there have been several conferences and several meetings where the leader of the Roman Catholic Church, Pope Francis, all gather all politicians and say, Mumra na ye na yen kamadofunum. Bible say in the last analysis, church, fallen church, any nyamesuma here say any wiase amanyofo, omu nyina beka bom to pursue one common agenda. But anyway, no mean let us go on. And now let's just look at the master plan. The master plan now lay out the problems and the proposed solutions. No, Laudato Si. But Laudato Si enye nkwa there were other things. But Laudato Si no ena kanyam sumfo nyina bom ena Ghana we are see politicians the presidents na into a document written by a religious leader, Pope Francis. The religious leader no all lay out the problems no na ono emo solution. Any solution no ama ewiase amanyofo say this is the solution to the problem. Enti Europe for Ghana ayifo America for amanyofo munsom na monhwe na mun implement it and na ye implement it. Very tricky because Bible say that is how finally no enyema ebe unfold no entube hu say eweye bremu no conflict anyamemba benya no they will have the conflict no with a wiasiso so different. And yet the powers that be, the governments and the powers no womu nebe implementing maybe they've been bought into and oma sell it oma buy sa no from the papacy. The papacy no aton sa na ma na wiase amanyofo and the wiase amanyofo ebe buy into. And until later ebe ba so ka say Babylon or say Babylon is falling. Na jentia Babylon what we are saying was say we are seeing anom the wine of Babylon. Wine no a symbol of false teaching. The false teachings of Babylon no one we are seeing himfuna anom sadie no and they will act upon it. And Laudato Si is a master plan. Lay out the problems and then the proposed solutions. The document is divided into 6 parts. And the 6 parts no. There is an introduction to the document. There is an introduction. In the introduction, of course, the namesake, and now Pope Francis, the namesake, Francis of Assisi, praise be to you, my Lord, through our sister Mother Earth. Bible say, okay, kind this a trade what we are. Or see Babylon here say, the Babylon so abeye a home fee, any normal fee, there is a form of pantheism. Any I say about some the back more ni na fra because asase nyame bo asase say asase na body awabo asase ni nipa any familial relationship said ye ni nipa one by that is how they see the whole thing. Now this also jives in because oko Hinduism any animism any these asuma hodua kani nyina abomu nyina. They believe in Mother Earth. As I say, they believe in it. Nanina yadia a common grounded. To say, praise be to you, Mother Earth, who sustains and governs us and who produces various fruits and culture. To wait that introduction. Laudato Si no online obia bit making kind because me nyakwan na me read document ni na I will just point to the main point no 6 parts no any a summary of the 6 parts. To us say this sister now cries out to us because of the harm we have inflicted. And now I say, Sir, as I see, O soon Ephraim, Bajo, Obinsa was one, I mean, who's Obia Pijanin, sir.
I say, Obi, and Sawad Sra, as I chatty question no Ebremi. Na afeno yenko yenim. You say, yede additional far baby my in perspective me to say ha wait me a chat or question na mami you be directed to yourself. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. And when in introduction is a good and Okotu, Pope Francis, Okotu, Pope John Paul II are all can be about global ecological conversion. And I say, yeah, best ecologically, not spiritual sense, but because the problem is Asare, any and near my day can't assassinate or say I do home. And to when now your introduction said a major underlying reason, the notion that okay, Nina no creation is harmed, Nina no eke appeal. Way introduction, as part of the introduction, the Pope makes an appeal. Now, it's very important because at the end, that is the appeal or making a reasi among your phone. Also, humanity still has the ability to work together in building our common home. She said, and you work together, humanity, global problem needs a global fraternity. You be a juma boom, and now you be working hand in hand to solve a common problem. And to see, I urgently appeal then for a new dialogue about how we are shaping the future of our planet. Now, as part of the appeal, or make it geopolitical appeal, which they say, or appeal to all the powers that be. And we are seeing in the document where just the introduction, and or can was say, and son of me can the see na me person can or say, and I quote, I will advance some broader proposals for dialogue and action, which would involve each of us as individuals and also affect international policy. And and yes, ye kwa sorry akoto dana si yapon yako bi ekona so de eken. We a religious leader, Pope Francis, and a world document ama wiase nyina amanyofo. And now, Casse or be ye proposals. Now, some proposals no, a be call it first of all for dialogue. Secondly, an action. And let's say, Asama Yebekano, and Yasama Yebekan diatuo, Asama Yebekan na ya implementation. Now, or say, a ye asemonsua a be affecting international policy. And internationally, we are seeing no, Kwanya ye faso, Edini maybe CC Hormono is gonna shape and affect it. And he say I don't think I can we are now but a nema affect international policy. And this is the introduction to that document, and your can was on page 21. You better develop policies, said in the next few years, emission of carbon dioxide, and a pollute the environment, you better reduce it. Now, the six chapters. The first one, what is happening to our common home? And a summary of chapter 1, and now section 1 of the document, up to six sections and not chapters. Pollution and climate change. And basically, he makes the point to say, pollution and a waste, and the first throwaway culture. Throwaway culture, no, I say, and then maybe a reaction do and yes, ebia ye yusu niema eye durable eche akwa say mekoto bibi na matu we na twene niema ye tutugu intentem so ye yusu nche ni nyina no ewo effect ewo consumerism kwanya ye consume niema intentem because the more consumerism eye high no the more na ye take niema no from the environment. For example, ye didi bebre me just and eye mfato home. We say consumerism say how we consume things and yes the basic point is say environment the more we consume certain things the more na effect our environment so and the first one section and chapter it talks about pollution and it's our waste any idea a climate and it belong to how is being depleted, is being or he lays out the problem. And Okase, there is a very solid scientific consensus. It indicates that presently we are witnessing a disturbing warming of the climatic system. And also he lays that out in the first chapter of that document. It's basically global warming. So we are seeing temperature because of a nearby human activities. And no idea all laying out. We know a children member picture way so. Now, climate, page 20, or climate change a global problems and with grave implications, environmental, social, economic, political, distribution of goods, and represent one of the principal challenges that facing humanity today. Okay, and that's the first one. And your pollution, your serve as a challenge to your common home. The second part of under pollution they talk about the issue of water. Say affective and now climate change affects accessible water and he talks about that. I will say when you access to ensure papa no by climate change poor no they don't have the human right so mobenya ensure papa no we say yes say ensure. Then they talk about another document also talks about loss of biodiversity. Was environment thrive because of climate change species are disappearing until we are not taking good care of our common home and also then it talks about the quality of life. I don't know I declined because environment eventually it will affect quality of life that is chapter 1. Chapter 2 of the document a summary the gospel of creation. The summary or make it say Bible mu onyankopon wa mayen asasi say yen say no or see any good stewards. She will say you good stewards of onyankopon the creation. And that's the basic summary of chapter 2 of the document. Now, chapter 3 talks about the human roots of the ecological crisis. Human roots need to say, and yema affect yasasi a human and a nipa yema and a affect animal into a technocratic paradigm. Sa technocratic paradigm what he means is a technology. Abuandi papa amanyema bebre akoso by a pros and cons. And then he talks about that throwaway culture and he talks about chapter 3 chapter 4 also is a summary of integral ecology. Now integral ecology so already dictionary defining ecology say a study of organisms, the environment and how the organisms interact with each other in the environment. And let's say baby was as you were different organisms obia no any will be a form of interaction be and your person or say sa sema ye kan wasem no say ye ni enema ti asase so yina no yina ye bom and solution should be an integral solution ebeboa also to preserve sa ecology na onyankopon ana ewo asase so no and you say an ecology which respects our unique place as human beings in this world and our relationship to our surroundings. Into yen winning who say, "Quite ben a bit many ye surroundings no interactive in a way ya any destructive. Name a respect your surroundings any and then he talks about every violation of solidarity and civil friendship harms the environment. So where the solidarity later remember when I talk about ecumenism, kwanya Asare make kabum any interfaith dialogue make us solidarity was and then the main focus on that. Now to us a human ecology is inseparable from the notion of the common good. The common good and so another thing there is another encyclical in fact your friend is a Francesco economy kwanya pope no person ye redesign economy any the air cost we friends a great research and also echo tiano will be a whole new presentation sir but in I just want us to focus on climate change say you're confused and now chapter 5 lines of approach quite ben ye first approach na solve it. Now this is very important in the lines of approach say okay you say pollution any sanimani no air koso ye day and and that is basically lines of approach now and you say what can and must do again you bet to me and again I was say These are the solutions. But see, the problem is we still lack the culture needed to confront this crisis. You need culture now. We need to develop the culture. And part of developing culture, and we also need leadership. Here will be a nipa obedi enim ewo wiase na wakanya boom to solve this battle. Yes, climate change. And you know, you hear and no. Now we need an international order, a new international order, a buoyant to solve climate change as a quiet before you bet me, Eddie the Messintino. As part of our international order, and was saying, when you quote page 122 of the documents, no, interdependence obliges us to think of one world with a common plan. And you know, one world, we are seeing with a common plan. And when you be a obibe in free, we are seeing on your phone one common plan. It was a global consensus is essential for confronting the deeper problems which cannot be resolved by unilateral actions on the part of individual countries. Enti no nyase oman baako na wokoye bibi. Yinina yen kambom na yenja global consensus. Na yentimi fam fight saade ba no. Now, Pope no document or trauma wiase amanyofo do. He is not saying say yinina yenya global consensus keke. Or say, okay, page 127 enforceable kyerɛ sɛ adeɛ a ɔhyɛ ɛka ho adeɛ a yɛwɔ tumi a yɛde bɛhyɛ aka ho to say enforceable international agreements are urgently needed since local authorities are not always capable of effective intervention. To say ɛnyɛ sɛ enforceable ebi a national you can say ewiase nyinaa yɛn kambom ana yɛnya adeɛ ewiase nyinaa kabom a yɛbɛtumi a enforce so yɛbɛtumi ahyɛ ama na yɛyɛ said Yebeya, Yebetumi Yasovo, Sa, and Nema Yekahwasemi. And you know, remember, it is one of the issues on the agenda. And to one page 127 as well, as part of the international order, I'll say relations between states must be respectful of each other's sovereignty, but must also lay down mutual agreed means of averting regional disaster. This is another way of saying, say, or maybe I a sovereign, but I will say ye lay be a mutual, you know, yenano, ya agree. For our common home. And this is stated several times. The call for international action, international solidarity. Or say, page 127, 128, or say, global regulatory norms are needed to impose obligations and prevent unacceptable actions. For example, when powerful companies or countries dump contaminated waste or offshore polluting industries in other countries. Or see here global regulations are was a impose obligations are hold na a boyen my to me prevent you or be action via more Emma sa goes here this year no yen to me enya sa goes no. Now the next one no and you know several times in the document there is a call for international actions. Any actions keke. But actions that must come with enforcement and the kika. In fact, Sanyama we say no, Okotu Pope Benedict, the the social teachings of the Catholic Church no. It is Sanyama okay na we are saying your four asomuni no, a part of the social teachings of the Catholic Church because a dean come shaka say the world will buy into the teachings no of Satumi and they will enforce it. And you know, any idea and to kind and near man no quote from Pope Benedict now, no to manage the global economy, to revive economies hit by the crisis. Any nema bibri no ye hear sa interventions. There is an urgent need of a true world political authority. Obi a we are seeing no respect no. I will be dear to champions cause yes climate change. And okay, you come once another 130 no so can. How can a plan and project, or say, how can a society plan and project its future amid constantly developing technological innovations? One authoritative source of oversight and coordination is the law. They will say, Yamra, a bit coordinated, Sanebody said, Yabeya, Adianu Nabitumi, Aye. And you know, Ubon said, I am quoting several times, say, we need a legal framework. Adia Yabeshe, Abe we are seeing now. This is number 5 of the document, a summary because you're the last part, no, number 6, no, but you're no better. Sunday, you're better. So, what I want to do is say, me come we will make something. And to be a message, no, me bo videos are actually say, she's here, we are seeing they are coming together to fight climate change, to fight climate lockdowns, climate emergencies. Where are these things? And he found the free back. Then I'm sending you to Ladato see. Sunday, the last part, the spiritual part, no. That is where the thing na it talks plainly about Sabbath. It talks plainly about Sunday. It talks plainly about how the solution is more than the wakeke, but that is where the solution is. And Obiwaka say that is where it is heading. Na matua so a broad document nearby out 2015. Kwanya UN, United Nations Organizations, SOMO. Kwanya United States of America, SOMO. Kwanya Ewiasia Manyofo, SOMO. Any Mrika Airco, any baby I do to see. Bet media no better was on Yambua Sunday. When you say Yabeko Kakra, said Yabeya, you bet me at yes, you'll be 10 minutes. And to be 10 minutes on your question and now be your honomoa. Me percent me pause na said Yabeya, you bet me at was Sunday. We will continue with the 6 points and then the aftermath. And tiende obi kase yema my penny climate emergency Europe for you will be what are these things? Where are they heading? And an echo and until yesuya sadie and I share to know the times any bride woman said we will be prepared and we will also share with others. And Tinamin Shamunina Ebiana I mean say that Ebiana will be tested question be my
Sure. Pastor, I say questions me by that what boss so at that and to say be stay focused na e dia adisuano akwa anim no ye hu say wo ka climate change ene saa enema ni nyina adentina asoma hodo ene de ekokosu nyina ye ka climate change ko bi be ka se bibi ohono mu a ekofa esomo aba enka ebia nkenye asum hu se na asum yi nyina no de subject akwa gina so climate change ugidi se edi entra ebia kwanchi ye appetite na ma ye hu se de entia wani abre ewo climate change no ho no enyina so bi ana de entia omo ye sa no anything.
Okay. Pope Francis, you see a true phone or see me down in New York. Pope Francis, when you time Google online, Pope Francis and the climate change. And you know, I'm when you really now no comment to me and share brain to them. People say, Pope Francis or your religious leader, Roman Catholic institution, it is a Ted Wilson, and your SZ, the president. And the Argentina, the near break, the thing say we are seeing climate change. Nandi pa can Wishia A2 Yaman penny for, and I'll give the evidence. Nipa Ekra Pope Francis Wishia A2 Yaman penny for, say, on find the Honja climate changing, no Munyas and Banina. I don't be deceived, it's a foil. Bible say the real agenda, no, worship. Na bibi ebedi di anymore because Bible say also better that we are seeing more wealthy. In fact, didn't come say and say if we are someone your four baby no they have no clue where these things are heading. Now we will read from document Sunday as we go to the last part. You who says you can't pollution is here and your worship. And I'm not making it up, it is part of the document. But they are not presenting that upfront. Because I was saying this structure then finally the real thing will come out to the fore.
Come out. And the pastor that said, OGD said, is it because climate change, and probably religious, different, you will buy into it. Anything about the subject and assume leaders you to assume, but here you so is it because that is the center a bit more attractive will be now?
Say, Bible say, and here again we are people of the book. Bible say, we are seeing two kind Revelation chapter 18 or Babylon or we are seeing star system. Now it will interest you. Said As soon as Laudato Si was released in 2015, and a Buddhist now so Kabomu and so a joint declaration on climate change in solidarity with the Pope Francis here. As soon as Hindus, Hindus is so joint declaration on climate change and then and I will share those documents and so idea climate change I appeal to one on secular grounds. And I appeal to one for when you fra the goal is the thing, but there were different dimensions. A PND from different dimensions. If one of the things we share, you say Sunday law, you can was no. One Casas is here, you very busy blue laws. Now, blue laws, no, see here, can be already in place. But some states be now, or more say in your constitution, by Supreme Court in 1961, decision take here, they affirmed the validity of blue laws and Sunday laws on the secular grounds. And a lot of things are already in place and they are all convergent. And you better explore one as we go forward now.
Sure. Questions now, how do you know? If I say the generation focus on the subject, and it may me Christo Nino, may take sa and yama way. Does that mean say who say di who bremi? Say mami ni me man temuni, na me di me man temunia, and so ben a war was sad so. Menton me japadian so. Na because ebinum te say Yesu ba no ache enti afi menton be japade and sa niema we nyina bre ye a Christo for me menda kwanwefo na the titu bra ye de addition ya ba wiye no e dien pa na opese ye mfam free side we mu.
Okay, the di kan pa no we Christo ni a Bible nkyere say any kwanse odi o mantemuni. In fact, you say cleanliness is next to godliness. Enti ya ka say the nipa famu be ye there is nothing wrong with that. Remember, say the devil always takes something good, not the baby about home. And that is why I was here. And it has nothing to do with say who do bantemuni as Christopher. Yes, the Afemudia, you be good stewards of ways, I will say Yafemudia. And that is not the point at dispute. But the point here say, can we see in album the baby? Now I will say you need that no. And the second one say I will say several times again say obi a catch there and say enema we basis na Yesu. And Yesu so na my decent. And on was a catch and say yema yebo emto ye. And these are not things to alarm the children of God. And kebe alarm the children of God dia kan nyame ye ne sabe na me na see you. And the purpose is not to alarm us. By Yesu ka sembi o se nema bebre yi kosuwa mumpeja mutina munkai say your redemption draweth nigh entino eboya maye hu say yankwaja be esanso boya maye hu say if we need to share with others so monimro mo ho so no mo so nye ready if we say Yesu beba na nema nyine be ma we need to do that and that's the purpose na me bo ekina in the divine service no meka gentia we don't need to be afraid and this is not to scare us. God is in control ultimately. But we need to know, say the first emphasis when say the beya, a big boy me nearby a so na ya front so Asare.
Yo, Pastor, ya da sebebre, ya di edwuma die no ebesi ha. Ya member Sir, yo, Sir Letitia, wonsa e was so ya besro na wa bisa wasem no.
But my question to climate change no dey there mentiasi o.
Yo.
Letitia me da say ebi anyame adom a Sunday no me ko ho no ne bi wo mo say asase a yete so no e temperature bi a eno na boa etumi sustain all the different enema was no tenye nipa nkwa na tisubi nipa tisubi e da wo ko be a ice weather so a e ho na polar bears say samwa no te e na oba be bi so ho no ma e ho ye grass e ho na bi a ada emwa bi so e grass ne. There is a dynamic, but obia will be or tia the environment and the hot will be a coso. But global temperature no air coso. And as I see so heat any yamano air coso. And the grass and yamano air coso because of the name be a year release to the environment no. And ma sa dynamics no. And the climate no air sisa, a real air sisa. Enti baby honma was say ice wo ho might be a polar bears to which honma ice no air melted enti destroy omo environment no baby honum a eni kwan say eja hyehye wo honom na ebi amwa bi so tina ho a eja toto ho ema ho so esesa baby honum a eni kwan say flood ba and eni baby but yama e ko say wiemu na ya kama na baby a obi a te no eye kama conducive no esesa enti no that is the a simplistic way I make to access our climate change. Can no more cases as Sadia, and the Fobia, how we say, we are seeing Nana as a Sunday man is a Yenina Yan Kaya Humbo, Nayam Papaya, your best solve it.
Yo, Pastor Darcy, I'm saying, yes, Shas, and I be brainy ho. This is something I be GD say, Pastor Enha next Sunday, no, your best answer on what's our back. Now, what's our trouble at the FM, not yin. Dodo na ntumi ama no ensan nya base no said yes sister ebusa ye esan said near ABC said wo kire ye no enyina no akoye climate change adenti na kwasiada emra ye ba be hye ene international friends climate change wo sa twaka eno nti aye very important na be gidi say no ni series a ya sha sia enda software nyame fa no so edi ebuebue eniema ani bebre akire say today be now person we question ni ready ya board topic ni din kase during china no mo koni nyina no betimi ama yensaka esan say software any penfo be say ye shape discussing no in a way ebema stay focus ni tima present message no enti I am most of the time ye be questions ni bebre behind the scenes na etimi aboa ama stay focus on the subject said ye be ya obetimi aye justice to the topic and I'm say emudo and a doso na yenya brain so etimi atchechim enti anwumre ye beda ye nyina ya se ewo adesua yi aye hyase and nyame ya adoma kwasiada ye be etwa so pastor ye be sre se bribi ewo honmu a ye kwei no ka wobɛbɔ so de amaya na nka wi a wɔhyira dwumadie ni nyina so amaye
yo remember the American choice say don't be afraid. Now I want to underline that several times. Meaning don't be afraid. God is in control. Nyame emaye hu sa na we say not because of person yem hihie but God consistent with his character no de bia no omayen de besi dache ansa na ba enti mema ye yem hihie. All this is telling us they say yemma yini so yen kwagya ben ma weni so no nche se pagya weni physically but say this is the time to look unto Jesus. Take your relationship with Jesus very serious. Uni Yesu ayonko fano, this is a time I also remember day. And we say, behold, he is coming and he is at the door. Onyamin shroud, onyamin tune and nimcho. Yamibu echna, I will talk about Revelation chapter 4. Na meka dientia, you don't have to be afraid. God is in control. Na onyame ema yensem da so. Baby I will be as with us in Mompaye. Yeda wase yenyankopon ene ya bankasiye. Why ena otise wo wenim eni wachi tumi bi eni honom. Yene hwan wo yi ehintasem kasiye edi achire yen. Evi se wasem chire yen se wo wade wunye bibi da. Ti se wadan wo chimpa edi achire wo mba. Yeda wase Washington eni adofo nom. De wo kan nyina achire yen se wo a wo ye ya jimpa ne ewade wa ben pese niema wo kan ye se de bem nyina no bem wi kan ntem so enti ye say ye ho sepeye we actually need to be happy, to be hopeful and rejoice because our redemption draweth nigh. Umma say ye tisi fumwa wa ye na the motivation of your coming ema yin peja yiti the woma ye de ho akofrafra ne mbia ensem fata say obi a ye twen ayefuro kru a this is a time to stay away from sadema no na yen dipu ye ho into your blood. Say the beya your blood will cleanse us and put us in the best shape through your Holy Spirit at all times. Yenum say we will make it through the coming crisis, not by power or by might, but by your grace. Yenum say we don't have to be afraid because you are in charge of the coming crisis. Yenum say any kind say ye alarmed if we say Radi Yesu unsa ekuta wiase mu shira woma na yeni adofo nim na ye tie message yeni afoforo so nche But if there was a time I was in the break for them for so who the if we say ebia very soon no opportunity post here why you bet in same say na you bet share no ebia to be over ti boy and san na yanye pesemi nkumenya yensu yengwina foforo ne afoforo nkwaje ho shira wasafo ma shira wo ma enyume ne ebeti ewu nyina ewe Yesu di munti amen.
Amen. Yo, Pastor Yedase Bibre. Nyame yadma kwesi ada ne yebesha ase nonso. Nipa Bibre are so much interested. Kromunye yasaf me be free London. Ebese yemfa YouTube nento so even very late to ho. Na omuntie. This is important. Obia kan ho asem, but in your culture as a Ghanaian churches, you know, yentiwum both abrochiri any Ghanaian. Enti yes Bebre say you bet 2 years afre adofo any ebusua for Sunday yen join ye ewo sa platform we so you be update your flyer no to reflect Sunday there no na nyame yadma no so pepepe ye di dwumedie no ato aso nyame tiw na nim kire na we shira ye na ba bia wo bia be join ye ewo Yesu din mu amen.
Amen.
Yo afi nyame ba ye besre ya ye bedi dwumedie